Let's talk about the structure of a Vue project. Here is the Vue project we just created. Let me quickly walk you through a Vue project structure. If some concepts do not make sense to you, don't worry about it. We'll explain them later. .VS Code stores the workspace settings for VS Code. It contains recommended extensions for this Vue project. Let's take a look. As you can see, Vue recommends us to install vue.volar. So let's follow the recommendations from Vue.js and install this VS Code extension. By the way, Vue has renamed this extension to Vue Official. So let's go to extension and search for this Vue extension. Vue is right here. As you can see, this extension is from vue.js.org. I have already installed it. The next extension that I recommend is called Vue VS Code Snippets. It is right here. This extension stores many useful Vue.js snippets to improve your productivity. You don't have to type the snippets by yourself. I will show some examples later. As you can see, I've already installed this. So make sure you install Vue Official and Vue VS Code Snippets. Node modules. This is the folder where all the local dependencies and the libraries which are required to build a project are stored. This folder is ignored by Git. So here in the .gitignore file, as you can see, node modules is ignored. So remember, never upload this folder to GitHub. Public. Files placed in the public folder are served as is, without undergoing any form of processing by the build tool, which is Vite. This is in contrast to assets placed in the SRC folder, which can be processed, optimized, or bundled by Vite and its plugins. Files under public are copied directly to the root of the dist or distribution folder when you build your project. Right now, the dist folder is not generated. Common use cases for the public folder include favicons, that is, browser icons that are typically fetched directly by the browser. Static files, files that you might need to link to directly from your HTML, such as PDF documents or other downloadable content. Third-party verifications, files used for verifying ownership or integrating with third-party services, like robots.txt, sitemap.xml, or various webmaster verification files. Or large assets, very large assets or libraries that you prefer not to be processed or bundled by Vite. Okay, that's for public. Next, let's look at SRC. This is the folder where the application source code of your Vue application resides. We talk about assets. In this folder, you will store all the assets of your application, which includes fonts, images, CSS, etc. Oh, by the way, to use CSS files defined here, you need to first import it into main.js. As you can see here, on line 1, main.js is importing main.css from the assets folder. Usually, we put some global CSS in the assets folder. Then every component in this project can use it. Components. This folder should contain all the Vue components of your application. Vue component is a very important concept in Vue.js. Think of Vue components as the building blocks of the application, or the Lego bricks. At this moment, all you need to know is that every Vue component is defined by a .vue file. So apparently here, we got 3 Vue components under components folder: hello world.vue, the welcome.vue, welcome item.vue. There's also a component that is not under the components folder, that is app.vue. So let me collapse these components. As you can see, app.vue is directly under src. App.vue is a very special component. It is the root component of the entire application. It represents the entire app. All other Vue components that define under the folder components are nested within this component. In a future video, we will discuss Vue components in depth, but for now, just think of Vue components as Lego bricks in the world of web application. A Vue component can be as large as an entire web page, or as small as a button, or a page header, or a navigation bar. Let's take a look at app.vue. As you can see here, a Vue component has 3 blocks: the template, script, and style blocks encapsulate and co-locate the view, logic, and styling of a component in the same file. Next is main.js. This is the entry point of the entire project. So when we launch this in the browser, this file is the first one that gets executed. As you can see here, on line 3, it imports a method, createApp, from Vue. On line 4, it imports the root component. Line 6 will create the application and mount it to an HTML element with ID equal to app. Then where is this HTML element with ID equal to app? It is right here, in the index.html. Take a look at line 10. There is a div whose ID is equal to app. This is where Vue will mount the app root component. This is actually a SPA, or single page application. Our entire front-end application only has this single HTML file. This div with ID equal to app is basically a placeholder for the entire Vue application. Everything will be output there. So the browser is loading this index.html file, but the content comes from the app.vue file, the root component. Next, let's take a look at jsconfig.json. This is a configuration file that provides VS Code with information on how to interpret the project's JavaScript code, enabling features such as code navigation, IntelliSense, or code completion, and code refactoring. Basically, it enhances the development experience in VS Code. As you can see here, we're defining an alias for this path, /src/. So we don't have to type /src. Instead, we can simply type the @ symbol. Next is the package.json. As you all know, a package.json file can be described as a manifest of a Node project that includes the packages and applications it depends on, information about its unique source control, and specific metadata like the project's name, description, author, and so on and so forth. So I want to direct your attention to line 6 to line 10. Vite project provides 3 very important scripts: dev, build, and preview. You have seen I used dev, npm run dev. That starts a dev server. So let me stop my server. If I type npm run build, pay attention to the project structure. A new folder called dist will be created. So here, we're building for production. Vite compiles the entire Vue project into this dist folder. As you can see, this is the single page, hence the name SPA, or single page application. And under assets, we have a .css and .js. And that's all. That's our entire front-end application. One HTML, one CSS, and one JavaScript. Simple and clean. And you can deploy this folder to your favorite cloud service. For example, Amazon AWS, Azure, or Heroku. So it's really easy to build your Vue project for production. Once you have built the application using npm run build, you can test it locally by running npm run preview command. So down here, I'm going to type npm run preview. The build project is running on localhost 4173. So let's take a look. As you can see, it is the same as what you saw on the dev server. But what I want you to know is that the content is served from this dist folder, not the src and everything else. The npm run preview command will boot up local static web server that serves the files from dist folder at localhost 4173. It is an easy way to check if the production build looks okay in your local environment. Then you can deploy it to a cloud provider. Okay, so let me shut it down. vit.config.js is the vit configuration file. As you can see here on line 13, we defined the same alias for ./src. So every time we need to use ./src, we can simply just use @ symbol. And here we can define more plugins and so on and so forth. When we work on the second, more complex project, Hogwarts Artifacts Online, we'll put more content in this vit.config.js file. For now, don't worry too much about it. Next up, an important thing to learn here is how all those files in this very complex product structure come together to serve us a Vue application. Let's look at main.js file under the src folder. As I said before, the main.js is the entry point of our Vue application. It imports all necessary dependencies. First is a method, create app. Second is the root component, app.vue. Next, on line 6, we create a new Vue application instance with the create app method, and then mount it on the div element with an id equal to app in this index.html file. When the application starts, it serves up index.html file. If what I said doesn't make a lot of sense, it's okay. We'll come back to those files again and again in future videos. Now, let's go to the src folder, and I'm going to delete some files to have a clean start. So I'm going to delete assets, components, and in app.vue, let's delete all of them. And let me showcase how I use the extension Vue VS Code Snippets. Instead of manually typing template, script, and style, we can simply type vbase. And there are many options. So we're going to pick vbase-3-setup. Press enter. Okay, great. This Vue snippet is inserted automatically thanks to the second extension we installed, Vue VS Code Snippets. And then we can start to fill in the blanks in these 3 blocks, template, script, and style. Since we delete the CSS, let's go back to main.js and get rid of line number 1. Let me type hello Vue. Okay, now let me start my project. npm run dev. Let me also delete the dist. Let's go to Chrome. Okay, this hello Vue is rendered on this page. So let me remind you that this app.vue will be mounted to here. So the content of this div will actually be replaced by the content in this app.vue when we start this application. All right, Next, let me create a GitHub repo for this project and push this project to GitHub. So let's give this repo a name. Let's call this learn view 3 with Bingyang. So everything looks good. Let me create this repository. Then let's go back to VS Code, add, commit, and push. Okay, so first let's use git init. Then git add, git commit, first commit. Then let's go back to our GitHub repo and copy these 3 lines. Copy, paste, and push. All right. Let's go back to GitHub repo. Refresh. All right. I pushed my project to this GitHub repository. I hope you have a better understanding of the Vue project structure. In the next video, I will introduce the shopping cart project. See you there.